Alright guys, it's Charlie Tango 1994 back with another YouTube video. Pulled out my new drone. I've actually had it for a few months. I haven't had a chance to unbox it and get it out and give it a test yet. So I'm going to shoot a video today based on the fact that I was out doing a DX activation last week, and the little black drone that I usually use when I'm out and about ended up getting lost. I lost control of it when I was out, and it ended up crash landed in a field. So I had, previous to that, gone out and invested in this, but just never got round to getting it out. So I've dug it out today and I'm going to open it up and get it all set up. The main reason for having a drone really is some of the places that I go to, I'm out in sort of open areas, up on high ground, so it's ideal really to have the space to fly it around, because I live in London and it's a pretty built up area, so there's not a lot of open space unless I take it to a local park, and then there's trees and all sorts of things that can cause problems. So that really is one of the reasons for taking it out with me when I do a CB radio activation, but also because, you know, you do get pretty amazing views, especially when you're really high up. And I like to just, you know, give it a fly around and capture some of the scenery, to be honest, because it's worth doing that. And the little black one I've had served its purpose. It was very, very cheap. I think it was less than £20, the black one I had before. But because it was pretty small and pretty lightweight, it did get knocked about by the wind quite a lot. And I did, as hard as I tried to sort of keep it under control, it wasn't too easy to keep it under control. So I was looking around, sort of back end of last year, for something that was a bit more of an upgrade. So I picked this H502E up for a number of reasons. As you can see, it's got a camera on the front of it, so that's the primary reason for having the drone for the uses that I want. This one is, as I say, a bit more of an upgrade. It's got GPS on it with sort of automatic stabilizing, if you like, so you can actually take your hands off the controls and it pretty much stays where it is. Also says on the box that it's got an automatic return, so there's a sort of return to home button on it. If it does go kind of wandering off, because it's got GPS, it knows where it took off from, and you press a button, and although I've not tested it, the story goes that it should return to the point where it took off. So it does all that automatically using the GPS, and also that it's got an altitude hold. So again, you can kind of set it to a position where you want it to stay, and then leave it there basically to hover, I suppose you would say, and then sort of bring it back when you're ready to. So hopefully it means I'm not going to lose this one, simply because of the GPS that's built into it and the stabilization and all that sort of stuff. And it wasn't an enormous expense, I have to say. There are drones out there that are many thousands of pounds, and there's everything in between, to be honest. There is another model that HUBSAN make, the 502S, which is another step up from this. It's got the same kind of features as these, but in the handset that you use, it's got a screen built into it, so you can actually see what it sees as it's flying around. And also it's got what's called a follow me function. So again, using the GPS, if you were, the idea being that you might be skiing or cycling or something like that, you can send it up in the air and then go wandering along whatever it is that you're doing, down a hillside or whatever else, and it will track based on the position of the handset of the remote control. So it kind of knows where you are based on that, and it will follow you along. So particularly if you're skiing or cycling down a hill or something like that, it will just follow you. Now, I've seen videos on YouTube where it hasn't been entirely successful if there's wires or trees or things in the way. It does its best, obviously, but it, you know, as I say, in the YouTube videos that I've seen, there's been a few lost by clattering into trees or pylons or whatever else. So I'm still going to be very careful with this, and I'm in no way an expert drone flyer, having lost at least 2 so far of the little black one that I was using. So I don't want to spend too much money, because there is a real risk that I'll end up breaking it, crashing it, losing it or something. So in terms of cost, this was around about 50 quid, I think, just under 50 quid, whereas the little black one I had was, as I say, less than £20, so more of a toy really. And then the HO2S was just a little bit too much for me. It was about £120. Does have those extra features and I'm sure they're really useful, but didn't want to shell out that sort of money for it, so struck on the 502E. So they're the reasons for having a drone and a little bit about what it is. Let's get the box open and we'll take a look at what's inside. So got the key bits out of the box. Just have a quick walk through of what you get. Drone looks really nice, I have to say. Not the sort of the most expensive of builds. It feels quite plasticky and stuff, but again, it was only sort of 40 or 50 quid, so I'm not too bothered about that. And you do have to do a bit of assembly, so the blades or the props you need to put on. And as I say, the other drone that I had, I used my mobile phone, my iPhone, to fly it. There was an app that connected to the drone over Wi-Fi, whereas this comes with its own controller. And there's a number of things about the controller and indeed setting up the drone that I'll walk you through. So yeah, you get the drone and obviously a set of instructions, and then you get the prop and a little screwdriver, bag of screws, and sort of prop guards or protectors. So just to protect the actual propellers, if you like, you can fit those guards just in case it does bounce off something. You don't actually break them. And then, as I say, the controller, we'll get to that in a minute in terms of what you need to do to synchronize the GPS and all that. I've done some research on YouTube, so I know that there's a bit of pre-configuration stuff that needs to be done. And then the only other thing that was in the box is the charger unit itself. The battery is inside the drone at the moment, but a little lightweight battery that obviously lives inside the drone. We'll pull that out in a few minutes. So the first job is to fit the propellers, and I know there's a bit of a knack to it, so I'm going to spend some time getting that right, and then I'll talk you through what I've done. So I've done the first bit, which is to fit the prop guards and the propellers on. I will put a link in to another video that takes you through a bit more of a detailed way of doing it, because you do have to be quite particular about what goes where and exactly how it fits and everything else, or you run the risk of damaging it even before you fly it. So it's worth taking your time making sure you understand what happens. But basically each of the arms is marked as either an A or a B. Let's see if I can get it on the camera so you can see there's a big A on the arm of the drone, and that matches up with A on the actual propeller itself. And then there's a particular way that it needs to sit to make sure that it's properly fitted, which is easier to show you in the actual instructions. So you need to match up A to A and B to B, pretty obviously, but then it needs to sit in a particular way. So there's a line on the propeller itself, and then the servo, or the sort of little arm that sticks up, has got a flat side. Now if you find that you're putting the propeller on and it doesn't fit on nicely, it should just slot in. It's because you've got it round the wrong way. So I got that wrong the first time, and it's worth just making sure you do that correctly, otherwise it won't all go together properly. And then the last thing to say in terms of the instructions is there's different screws and they turn different ways. So for the A arms you need the black screws, and the B arms you need the silver screws. So I'm going to fit those now. So I've done the assembly of it now. Got the propellers on, screwed them in, all of that. Worth noting, if you do ever need to do this, that the A screws, the black ones, are reverse thread, so you have to turn it anti-clockwise to get them to tighten, and the B screws, the silver ones, the other way around. So as you would expect, they turn clockwise. First time I tried that, got that, I didn't quite understand that, and I was turning it away and away and away, and it just wouldn't tighten down. So worth knowing. Some of the screws are reverse thread, so you turn it the unnatural way to get it to tighten up. Good that they give you a little screwdriver, because that will work. So the other thing to say is that they give you some spares. So you've got 2 propellers for each, 2 A propellers and 2 B propellers, and some additional screws. So there's 2 extra black ones and 2 extra silver ones. So that'll go back in the box in case I ever need them. If you do have a crash, if you do need to replace any parts, then you've got some bits there, so you don't have to go out and shell out more money to replace things. The other thing to say about this one, it's got the camera, but the other drone that I had used to send the images to your phone, and then that gave you your video. whereas this one you need to install an SD card. So I have got one floating around somewhere. I'm going to go and just install that. There's a little slot in the side. Then we'll pull the battery out, give it a charge, and I'll go and find the batteries that I need for the controller, get that all set up, and then I can show you that. Worth showing you as well, there were 4 other screws slightly larger than the ones you use to fit the propellers. Took me a second to work out. It isn't actually in the instructions, but there's a little hole where the prop guards are, so I'm going to screw them in using the little screwdriver just to hold them firm, because they kind of clip in, but just to sturdy everything up and keep everything in place, you lock them down with these screws. So I'm going to tighten those up, and then we're ready to take a look at the actual drone itself. So that's all of the assembly done now. I've pulled the battery out, just a little black battery there that goes inside it when it's flying, and just try and give you a bit of a closer look. You've got the camera on the front. Worth also saying it's still on there, but there's a little bit of cellophane just as a protection to the lens. So before you actually start filming, remember to take that off. I mentioned that the video stores its images on an SD card, so you can see I've got it upside down, but there's a little SD slot there, which I'll go and put the SD card in a moment. And then you've got the battery compartment on the back. See if I can do this one-handed. So yeah, once the battery's charged, you just slot it into that little hole, close it all up, and it should be ready to fly. You'll see when I do give it a test flight, there are also on the bottom little LEDs. I can't remember what way it was, red at the front or green at the front, white at the front, can't remember. But when it's some distance from you, just helps you to identify what direction it's flying in. So if you want to bring it towards you, obviously you need the white lights coming towards you, not the red lights. But as you kind of steer it around, it's always worth knowing the direction of travel, because if it's facing away from you and you want to bring it towards you, then it will move further away from you, obviously. So just kind of drone pilot navigation tips for anyone that wants to understand more about it. So next job is to charge up the battery. Go and find a bunch of AA batteries for the controller, and I'll be back when all that's ready, and I'll take you through getting it paired up to the controller, some of the functions you need to do to get the GPS to work properly. So I got everything charged up now. I brought it all out into the garden to have a look at the controller and what needs to be done with that. We've got to pair the device with the controller, but that should be fairly automatic, and do the GPS. To switch the controller on, a few things to show you. On the left is the battery of the controller itself, on the right is the battery of the drone, so you can keep an eye on that's gone. And now it's asking to set compass. So this is what he said in the instructions. What you've got to do is take the drone and spin it a few times until you see, at the moment it's saying set compass 1. A bit difficult to film. Now it's saying set compass 2. So we have to turn it downwards, face it towards the ground, and then turn it a few times. Sorry, it is a bit tricky to film this one-handed. And it should then tell us, still saying compass 2. So we'll keep turning it. That looks like it's done. Alright, so sorry about that. I'll see if I can sort that out in the edit. So the number 6 is telling us that it's found 6 satellites, and it should start building up. So you can fly it with a minimum of 6, but I think it goes up to 10 or 12. So we'll give it a few minutes, and also while we're waiting for the GPS, the drone to sort of lock in, have a quick look as best we can at the handset, at the controller. On the left hand shoulder button, you've got the ability to snap a photograph, or if you hold it for a second and a half, it bleeps and then lets you know that it's filming. You've got no feedback, so you won't see it actually filming, but you need to remember to press that button to start and stop the video. And then on the right hand side there's the return to home button. So we said with the GPS, if it gets sort of out of control or you lose sight of it or whatever, you can press the button and it uses the GPS to return to where the motor's first fired, so where it took off from. And I'm hoping that prevents any issues in the future with losing it. So we're just waiting a couple of minutes for the GPS to build up. it's gone from 6 to 7, and it's been a couple of minutes, about 2 minutes so far. So we'll leave it a little while longer just to see what happens. But as I say, it should climb up to 10 or possibly 12, depending on where you are and satellites overhead and all that sort of stuff. So we'll see how we go in the next couple of minutes. So I've left it for a good few minutes and we're up to 8 satellites, so we're ready to fly it. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to film it and fly it because I need 2 hands to be able to do that. Let's see what we can do. I'll start the motors and then maybe get it into a hover. I also don't want to fly it too much and just fly it around just a little bit and see how we go. Started it all up. You move the control arms on the remote down and out to start it all off, and you just sort of check in the spin of the rotors just to make sure they are properly connected, and it all looks good, so we should be able to get it airborne. So I've got my son flying it just for a minute. It is fairly stable. We come out to the grass close to our house. He's doing quite well with it actually. Hope you enjoyed watching this video, and as a thank you to you, particularly if you're new to CB Radio or returning to it after many years, I've put together a free information series called The Beginner's Guide to CB Radio, which I'm sharing with all of my subscribers. To find out more, click the link in the top right corner now. And new for 2018 is my CB Radio playlist.